Hi there, it's Alistair from the Havilland Aircraft Museum here, and in this post I'm going to introduce you to a particular favourite aircraft of mine. It's the Havilland DH.112 Venom. And it's a favourite of mine because when I joined as a volunteer in 2006, this is the aeroplane I was given to work on. For some reason or other, I've always had an interest in naval aviation, and when they found that out on my first day, they said, "Okay, Alistair, there you go, there's a naval aeroplane over there, you go work on it because nobody else wants to, so it's yours." And it's just been fantastic. We've been together for 14 years now, and I had an absolute blast doing the restoration. Not just me, of course, there's always been a couple of us working on it over the years. Now, it may look all nice and sleek and jet aeroplane and everything like that, but you know what, it's actually made of wood. It's made of plywood and balsa wood, the front half of it is anyway. And it's been outside for nearly 30 years before we started restoring it. Steph, show the guys a picture of what it actually looked like. Here's a picture now, coming up. That's what we started with. That's how it actually looks on day one. So you can see now, looking at the completed fuselage pod, just how much work we've had to do. We've had to do a big restoration job on it. What do I mean by restoration? Well, when you restore an aeroplane, you take it down, you strip it down to its component parts. And every part you put on a workbench, you restore, you rebuild. The fuselage pod itself, we had to strip that down. 75% of the wood is all new wood. So it's been a huge, huge job. We've done the engine as well. We might talk about the engine in different posts, but we've done the tail section here, got the tail booms and the tail plane, and the tail cone at the back of the engine. The only bit you can't see here is the wings. The wings are in a different workshop. We may have a look at those later on, but they're in progress now, and that's the last part of the restoration. But it's not just an outside restoration, so we've had to do a huge amount of work inside the cockpit. So we're going to stop filming just for a moment while I climb in. It's not a nice sight to see a curator climbing into an aircraft cockpit, so just give us 5 minutes. I'll get in and show you around the cockpit as well. We are inside the cockpit of the Venom, and I must just say before we go on that this particular post is dedicated to George on Instagram, because George did his work experience with us a couple of years ago. He comes from Ringwood in Hampshire, and he had a great time with us. He did a lot of useful work with us. He helped me work on the Venom for a couple of days. So George, this is for you, mate. I hope you're enjoying this. I hope you're doing well. So onto the cockpit. It's a two-seater. It's quite a tight fit, as you can see, not a lot of space. I'm sitting in the pilot's seat, and beside me is the seat for what the Royal Navy would call the observer. Now, this is a very traditional name in the Navy, naval aviation, because the observer in the pre-war Navy would be observing the fall of shot from the fleet's battleship guns. But in this day and age, 1950s and onwards, the observer is basically the navigator of the aircraft and also the radar operator too. So the observer sits beside and slightly below and behind me, and he will have a radar set in here which he will operate. He's got controls from the radar over to his right. I'm the pilot, I'm flying the aircraft, so I've got the flight controls here, I've got all the instruments here, I've got a control stick to control the movement of the aircraft, throttle on the left, and I've got my feet on the rudder pedals. You know what, I think we'll take a look at the flight controls maybe in a different video post, maybe a little bit later. But here's the basics, here's the Venom cockpit. Now I just want you to bear in mind, you look around everything like here, just think that every single thing in this cockpit as part of the restoration, it all got taken out, dismantled on the workbench, reassembled, cleaned, stripped down, painted, put back together again on the bench, and then reassembled into the aircraft. This was taken down to a completely empty shell and then all put back again. So everything you see has been part of the restoration job. There you go. There's your Venom cockpit. Thanks very much for watching. Stay in touch, stay tuned, stay safe, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks a lot.